spend about 15 minutes digging into the actual topic. In this case, the refusal of the call in the hero's journey. Then we're going to use the Q&A and chat components of Zoom to bust out some one-liners as a group. And then we're going to spend about 15 minutes picking those apart, including picking mine apart. So I'll unleash Seth and David to make me look bad. So, hey, is my video coming up at all, or is it just the presentation?
I can see you at the top of the screen.
Oh, okay. I will take it. All right. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this thing. Welcome to our Inbox Attack weekly workout. A little bit of administrivia first. I've muted all your mics till we get to the Q&A segment. And as I mentioned before, 15 minutes of presentation, 15 minutes of writing and rewrites, and 15 minutes of Q&A. Today, we're going to dig into the portion of the hero's journey where the hero, in this case, your prospect, refuses the call to adventure. And then we're going to adapt that to identifying objections and anticipating and overcoming those objections when you're trying to get somebody to reply to an email or to click on a link or to spend some money. Do some live rewrites and some Q&A. So the hero's journey, just to recap, we go over this every week. First and foremost, you are not the hero. Your prospect, your dream customer, your dream client is the hero. You yourself are the mentor, aka the trusted advisor, and your product or service is the elixir, aka the lightsaber. So in this basic diagram here, you see in the hero's journey that right now the hero is still in the normal world. So they're business as usual. Normal world does not mean bad. It doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean painful. It just means normal. Complacent, predictable, devil you know. A lot of ways you could describe that. Just note that heroes don't always refuse the call to adventure, but they usually do. They usually do. Here's a few examples and some of my favorites. When Rachel Weisz's character approaches Brendan Fraser, you know, the Egyptian expert, dashing hero, it's like, hey, you know, I'll get you out of here if you lead me to Hamunaptra. And he was like, nope. It was a very simple refusal of a call to adventure. Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, when Obi-Wan first approached him, and he's like, no, my family's here. I'm not going to do that. He was not having it. Neo, when he first got the phone call from, can't remember if it was from Lawrence Fishburne's or Carrie Moss's character, but he initially made it all the way out to the building, like, oh my goodness, I've got it. Like, this guy's gonna start his adventure. And at the very last minute, he got too scared up on the building and he couldn't get to the other window. Gladiator, Maximus, when he was first approached by Marcus Aurelius to take over the throne, straight out refused. And he gave a very noble reason for it. But you see these throughout stories and just human nature. Human beings naturally, our natural psychological evolutionary inclination is to avoid the unknown. And whether or not your offer or whatever it is you're pitching, whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is you want people to do, after reading the words, it's regardless of how well written it is still asking them to move into the unknown, to do something new, to change a behavior, to move their own cheese. And it's natural. So like trying to skip this step when looking at any sort of sales copy is foolish, because we are hardwired this way. That is why we see it in movies all the time. It works in movies because it is part of the universal psyche of human, to be what it is to be human. All right, here's a little side by side here. So in stories, the hero, when they first hear the call to adventure, they are risk averse. They are risk averse. Now in business, people are risk averse, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are averse to new things. So in business, when you're selling a product or service, oftentimes they want to know what it costs. That's why people put pricing links on their web pages. And also soft costs, like how long is this phone call going to take? But that's what they're looking for. In stories, your prospect, the hero always is going to want to, they're going to prefer the old world. Now in business, they don't necessarily prefer their old way of doing things. Many of them are like, oh man, I wish there was an easy way to do that, or better way to do this, or more comfortable way to do this. But you know, I've tried those before and all those devils weren't good to me. So I'm just going to stick to the devil I know. In stories, the hero will refuse throughout the process. So they will refuse the call to adventure multiple times. And when you're selling something that's a bigger ticket item, typically there's multiple yeses that you need. And that carries over exactly in business, almost like a 1-for-1 ratio here when you're looking at how it is with stories and how it is in business. That series of commitments is something that Anthony Honorino does really well. He's one of my favorite sales authors, and he talks about getting the process from someone who's a stranger and turning them into a buying customer. You typically involves, and this is more for middle to high ticket items, but it typically involves a series of commitments. And you could expect that your prospect, your dream customer, is going to refuse every step of the way. So even if you get them to say yes to the call, they're going to say no to the proposal. If you get them to say yes to the proposal, they're going to say no to the demo, through the whole process. In stories and in business, this refusal to call is rooted in fear and insecurity. It is less about the numbers and more about fear of the unknown. What if it goes wrong? What is my boss going to say? What is my spouse going to say? What are my friends going to say? That the scared little boy or little girl inside, that's where the root is. So you need to be cognizant of that when you're communicating to strangers and trying to get them to do something for you. In stories, the only way to get somebody out of that fear paralysis is to raise the stakes. In the case of Gladiator, the raising the stakes was awful. They went after his family. And that kind of nudged him along on his adventure. With Star Wars, it took a lot more coaching and coaxing from Obi-Wan, and that in business actually is the closer correlation. Is that they're going to need something or somebody that they trust guiding them through the process, even if it's just the process of opening their wallet and swiping their card at a point of sale. And it's going to require them to actually have the money. They need to have the resources. And stories, that's sometimes part of what makes stories interesting, is people don't have the resources. They're scrappy. It's them against the world. And finally, in business, when you're looking at your prospect refusing in the beginning, like, no, that's too far out of my comfort zone. One of the things that we want to do is dismantle their objections. So the only option left is yes. And this is a very old school sales tactic. It's very effective and it seems very simple. It's like, oh, wow, if we overcome all their objections, the only thing left is going to be a yes. It is really hard because knowing how to anticipate the correct objection and not to oversell is even harder. So that's one of the things we're going to work on today. Okay. Wrong ways and right ways. This is something that I imagine you've seen in emails. All of us have seen this in emails. So I see it all the time as like, hey, this sales process. It's a painless process. This is so easy. It's just a single click. First of all, no one's going to believe that, even if it's true. And second of all, it doesn't require any work on the part of the prospect. People want the easy way, but there's also a deeply rooted psychological thing that people want to feel like they've done something to earn it. There's a lot of case studies about really famous brands like Groupon and Amazon even, where they actually have added steps to a process to increase the level of buy-in. So I'm not going to talk about that for hours, actually, but that's just something to keep note of. I hear this a lot. Hey, it's just a quick call. I just want to hop on a quick call. Once again, the alarm bells go off. What that does is they're already say, well, who is the stranger asking me to do something? Asking me to open up my wallet or open up my schedule. Being specific with it, yeah, I want a 15-minute conversation. That little switch will actually help drop their guard a little bit because it makes the unknown scary monster something that has shape. And I was like, I'm kind of afraid of dogs, but that's a little dog. So I think I'll be okay. My least favorite way of people attacking this is my product will change your life. It will transform your business. It will change everything. That is not a good way of approaching things, even if they're like in the depths of despair and you're selling self-help. No one wants the change is what they're afraid of. The change is what they're afraid of. So we could drill into the subcomponents of the change that my product or service or Shinola will solve A, B, and C for you. That's commonly known as a bulleted list of benefits. And there's a reason you see it so often. It's because it's effective. We're not trying to change their whole life. We're just trying to help relieve the pain or increase the pleasure in certain areas, which may change their life, but that's the big outcome. And that's too big of an ask in the beginning. And you see this a lot in movies too. It's like, oh, you didn't realize that you're going to save the world, that it's your destiny to save the world. Like, I know pressure there. Okay, of course I'm going to refuse that call. It's way too scary. And finally, going with a universal approach that this could be used by everyone and works for everybody is, even with the smartphone, when the iPhone was first released, that was, everyone in the press of this is for everybody, but it doesn't work without a data signal with actual robust cellular communication. It took probably a decade for all the infrastructure to roll out where it literally could be in everybody's hands. And humans aren't stupid. Once again, it's like, oh, it's snake oil. It's a single thing I can drink every morning, and it's gonna heal my soul and my body, like whatever. So one of the ways to reframe that is to say that it should work perfectly for you. You don't know because they're a stranger. You don't know if it's going to work perfect for them. You hope it will. You believe it will. You believe it could work for everybody. But ultimately, it's still a one-to-one conversation that we're trying to start here. It should work perfectly for you to solve A, B, and C problems. It just takes a 15-minute conversation. All right. Okay, so we are going to hop into some live rewrites. And let me, okay. So let's hop into, chat. And if you're coming in late, if you're a little late to the show here, we recently graduated out of Uber Conference into Zoom. Zoom is awesome, but it's a lightsaber that I don't know how to wield quite yet. So thank you in advance for your patience. Okay, what we're gonna do is get into. All right.